The porcelain teacup rattled against its saucer, and I gripped it tighter to make it stop. "You weren't supposed to see the moving truck," my son said, not looking up from his phone. "Not yet, anyway." I set the cup down. My hand had left a small crescent of coffee on the white tablecloth, the shape of a fingernail moon. "Michael," I said, "whose truck is it?" He finally looked at me, and there was something in his face I'd never seen before. Not guilt. Calculation. "We'll talk about it later, Mom," he said. "It's complicated." Behind him, through the kitchen window, two men in matching polo shirts carried a dresser I recognized. My dresser. The one from my own mother's house. I didn't say another word. I just watched it disappear into the truck, and I started doing math in my head. My name is Diane Kessler. I'm 63 years old, and for 31 years I ran a commercial cleaning company out of a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat until it became something real. 42 employees, contracts with 11 office buildings across the county, and a business valuation, as of the last audit, of $2.3 million. I built that company after my husband Frank left when Michael was 4. I built it on my knees, scrubbing floors at midnight, so I could pick my son up from school in the afternoon. Every dollar I ever made went toward one thing: making sure Michael never had to worry the way I did. 3 years ago, when Michael told me he wanted to bring his family closer, to be there for me as I got older, I did what any mother would do. I helped him and his wife, Ashley, buy the house 2 streets over. I co-signed. I gave them $180,000 toward the down payment, money I'd been saving for my own retirement, for the day I'd finally stepped back from the business. That house was supposed to be the center of everything. My grandchildren's bicycles in the driveway. Sunday dinners. The last chapter of my life, written close to the people I loved most. Instead, on a Tuesday morning in March, I watched strangers load my dead mother's dresser into a truck, and I found out my son was moving to Colorado. Nobody had told me. I found out because I drove over unannounced with a casserole. I stood in the driveway that morning holding a Pyrex dish that was getting heavier by the second, watching a life get boxed up in real time. Ashley came out onto the porch in athletic wear I knew cost more than my winter coat, a green smoothie in one hand, sunglasses pushed up into hair that had clearly seen a blowout that morning at 8 a.m. on moving day. "Oh," she said when she saw me. Just that. "Oh," like I was a delivery she'd forgotten to cancel. "Ashley, what is going on?" "Michael was going to call you tonight," she said, sipping her smoothie like we were discussing brunch plans. "He got an offer. Denver. Regional director. It's a huge step up." "A step up from what?" "He works 20 minutes from my house." "From being stuck," she said, and I watched the word land on me like she'd meant it to. We didn't want to make a big thing out of it while it wasn't finalized. Behind her, through the open door, I could see my grandchildren's bedroom furniture already gone, the walls bare, pale rectangles on the paint where photographs used to hang. Pictures of me. I looked at the moving truck. I looked at the house I had put $180,000 into. And I smiled, because 31 years in business teaches you one thing above all else. Never let them see the math you're doing. "Well," I said, "I brought lasagna. I'll just put it in the fridge." I walked past her into a house that still, on paper, had my name on the mortgage documents. And I started paying very, very close attention. That night I couldn't sleep, so I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I logged into the joint bank account I'd set up when we bought the house, the one meant for property tax escrow. The balance was $340. It should have held closer to $14,000. I called Michael the next morning, my voice deliberately soft, deliberately confused. "Sweetheart, I think there's an error on the escrow account." "Oh, that." A pause, the sound of him covering the phone, murmuring to someone. "We had to reallocate some funds for the relocation. Moving costs, temp housing, broker fees on the Denver end. It's all itemized, Mom, it's a whole spreadsheet. Very standard stuff when you're doing a corporate relocation package." I didn't know what a corporate relocation package was. I told him that. He laughed, not unkindly, the way you laugh at someone who doesn't understand technology. "It's fine, Mom. Ashley handles all this. Don't worry about it." I said I wouldn't worry about it. Then I opened a folder on my computer and named it escrow. 3 days later, I drove to the house to help pack. Really, to look. In a box marked kitchen, Misk, I found a manila envelope that had slipped out from under a stack of cookbooks. Real estate listing printouts. Not for a rental in Denver. For a $612,000 home in a suburb called Cherry Creek. Purchase agreement already signed. Closing date in 5 weeks. They weren't renting to try it out. They bought. I confronted Michael that evening, still playing soft, still playing behind. I found some paperwork for a house. I thought you said you'd be renting first. He didn't even flinch. Ashley's dad helped us with a bridge loan. It made more sense to buy given the market up there. We didn't want to bother you with the details. You have enough going on with the business. How much was the bridge loan? It's really more Ashley's family's arrangement. A beat. You know how private her dad is about money. I did not know that. I had met Ashley's father twice, at a barbecue and at their wedding, and he had struck me as a man who discussed his money constantly and enthusiastically. I hired Renata, a forensic accountant I'd used once for a vendor dispute at the company, and asked her to quietly pull whatever public records she could on the Denver purchase and on my own joint accounts with Michael. It took her 4 days. The $612,000 house hadn't been financed with a bridge loan from Ashley's father. It had been financed with a home equity line of credit taken out against the house 2 streets over, the one with my name on the mortgage. My signature was on the HELOC application. I had never signed it. I went back to help pack one more time, and I stood outside the garage, out of sight, because I'd left my cardigan in Michael's car and gone to retrieve it, and I heard them before they saw me. She still thinks it's a rental, Ashley said, laughing, the particular laugh of someone who has never once had to build anything from nothing. She's so far behind on all this. It's actually kind of sweet. She signed whatever I put in front of her for the company insurance thing 2 years ago, Michael said. She barely reads it anymore. She trusts me. It's not even hard. God, and the way she stood there with that lasagna, Ashley said. Like a little soldier. I almost felt bad. Don't, Michael said. She'll be fine. She's got the business. She doesn't need the house money anyway. I stood very still against the cold aluminum siding of the garage, my cardigan forgotten, and I thought about the girl who used to fall asleep on a cot in the break room of my first office because I couldn't afford a babysitter and a night shift both. I thought about 31 years. Then I walked to the car, got my cardigan, and said, brightly, found it. That night, I made a decision, and I made it the way I'd made every hard decision in the business, coldly and with a plan. I decided to become smaller. I started calling Michael more often, but with a slight quaver I practiced in the mirror until it sounded natural. I started saying, I don't really understand computers anymore, and you know I never was good with numbers. That's your father's side. Even though I had personally built the P&L system my company still used. I let my posture soften at Sunday dinners, let my shoulders round forward, let a pen shake very slightly in my hand when anyone asked me to sign anything. I started carrying a cane I didn't need, for my hip, which was in perfect condition. Let them believe the door is unlocked because no one's home, I told myself. That's when people stop checking the locks. Ashley began speaking to me more slowly, over-enunciating, the way you talk to a tourist or a toddler. Michael started handling the details, without asking me anything at all. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. A woman they'd stopped watching was a woman who could watch everything. I set 3 things in motion. First, I had Renata compile the full financial picture into a single document. The forged HELOC, the drained escrow, 3 years of loans from my personal accounts that were never repaid, totaling $247,000 above and beyond the original $180,000 down payment. I printed exactly 1 copy and kept it in a fireproof lockbox in my office, not my house. Second, I asked my nephew, a defense attorney named Todd, to explain, quietly, off the books, what forging a cosigner's signature on a HELOC application constituted under state law. He used the word felony twice. Third, and this was the bait, I told Michael, with my rehearsed tremble, that I wanted to sign over my portion of the house equity entirely, formally and cleanly, before they moved, so there'd be no confusion for the lawyers later. I said I'd bring the paperwork to the goodbye dinner they were hosting that Friday, 40 guests, a proper send-off. I said I just wanted one nice family document to end things properly. I did not tell them the real document in my bag would be Renata's report, not a transfer of equity. I did tell my phone, sitting in my purse beneath the table that Friday night, to record. The dinner was held in their half-empty house, 40 guests standing among moving boxes stacked like a stage set, string lights, a caterer's table, a toast Ashley's mother had clearly written for her. I sat near the head of the table in a cardigan, my cane resting against my chair, my purse beneath the table with the phone inside it live and recording, the manila folder resting in my lap like something harmless. Michael stood to give a toast. He thanked everyone for the journey, thanked Ashley's parents for their generous support, and then, raising his glass toward me with a smile I now understood completely, said, "And to my mother, Diane, who's always been so understanding about, well, everything. We couldn't have made this move without her." Laughter. Ashley, 2 glasses of wine in, leaned toward her sister and said, not quietly enough, "Understanding is one word for it," and got a laugh too. I stood up, slowly, the way they expected. I let the cane wobble once against the floor for effect. "I'd like to say a few words too," I said, "since Michael mentioned how understanding I've been." The room settled. I set my cane against the table. I opened the folder. 3 weeks ago, I said, my voice even, not raised, I found out my son and daughter-in-law sold my mother's furniture without asking. In the same week, I learned they'd moved from renting a home in Denver to purchasing one for $612,000. Michael's smile started to fail at the edges. "Mom, I'm not finished." Still calm. "That home was financed through a HELOC taken against the house I put $180,000 into. A HELOC application bearing my signature. A signature I never wrote." Gasps, low and real, moving through the tables like wind through grass. "Over 3 years," I continued, $247,000 has moved out of accounts I trusted my son to manage responsibly, and into accounts he did not disclose to me. I have the documentation. I have a forensic accountant's report. And I reached into my purse, lifted the phone, set it gently on the table, screen up, still recording. I have a recording from this house, 3 weeks ago, of the 2 of you laughing about how I barely read what I signed anymore. Silence. Ashley's face had gone the color of the tablecloth. "I do read what I sign," I said. "I read everything. 31 years running a company will teach you that." I paused. "I just decided it was time to let you both believe otherwise." Michael stood, his chair scraping loud against the floor. "This is insane. You're humiliating me in front of—" "You forged my signature, Michael." Still quiet. Still even. "That's not humiliation. That's a felony. And my nephew Todd." I nodded toward the back of the room, where Todd stood, having arrived 20 minutes earlier, quietly, with 2 other men I hadn't introduced, has already been in contact with the district attorney's office this week. The 2 men stepped forward. One of them was not, in fact, a guest of the family. "Diane Kessler," he said, to me, formally, for the room's benefit as much as mine. "We spoke on the phone. We'll need copies of everything you have." I picked my mother's photograph up off a nearby box. One of the few things I'd noticed hadn't made it onto the truck yet, still wrapped in bubble paper on a side table, and I unwrapped it slowly, in front of everyone, and set the frame upright on the table facing the room. Then I took the fake equity transfer document I'd brought as bait, the one with Michael's name already printed at the bottom in anticipation of my signature, and I tore it once, cleanly, down the middle, and set the 2 halves beside my mother's photograph. "I won't be signing anything tonight," I said. "Enjoy your dinner." I picked up my cane. I didn't need it anymore, but old habits, and walked out into the cold March air, where my husband, Robert, my second husband, the good one, was waiting by the car exactly where I'd asked him to be. Within 6 weeks, the following occurred. Michael was charged with forgery and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. A charge Todd assured me was more about leverage than accuracy, given that I was neither vulnerable nor, technically, elderly enough for that specific statute, but the forgery charge alone carried real weight. He accepted a plea deal, restitution of the full $247,000, 3 years probation, and a permanent mark on record that ended his career in regional retail management before it began. The Denver job offer was rescinded the week the news broke in his old company's regional office, word traveling the way it does. The $612,000 Cherry Creek house never closed. The seller pulled out the moment the Hellick financing collapsed under legal scrutiny. Michael and Ashley's moving truck, the one I'd watched load my mother's dresser, ended up in a storage unit in Nebraska for 4 months while they sorted out where they'd actually live, which turned out to be Ashley's parents' basement. Ashley's parents, who had genuinely believed the bridge loan story themselves. I confirmed this with Renata's records, which showed no transfer from their accounts at all, filed for a legal separation between their daughter and any further claim on their own assets. Ashley's mother called me, crying, to apologize for the toast. I did not sue for the original $180,000. I structured the restitution instead, through Todd, so that $40,000 of it went directly into a trust for my 2 grandchildren, untouchable by either parent until they turned 25. Whatever their parents had done, the children hadn't done it, and I wasn't going to let 2 8-year-olds inherit their mother and father's debts along with their sins. I also quietly paid off the final 2 months' wages owed to the moving company crew, who'd been stiffed by Michael when the sale collapsed, and he claimed he didn't have it. Working people shouldn't lose money because a man lied to his mother. It was late November, 8 months later, and it had been raining for 2 days straight, the kind of cold rain that gets into your coat collar, when the doorbell rang at 9:40 at night. Michael stood on my porch without an umbrella, his coat soaked through, a duffel bag at his feet, thinner than I'd ever seen him. Ashley had left in September, he told me, though I already knew that from his sister. He'd been staying with a friend from college whose patience had apparently run out that afternoon. "Mom," he said, and his voice cracked on the word in a way that, once, would have undone me completely. "I don't have anywhere else to go, just for a few nights. Please." I stood in the doorway, the warm light of my front hall behind me, Robert's footsteps quiet on the stairs behind that. "I loved you before you could talk," I said. "I will love you when I'm gone. But loving you was never the same as trusting you, and you taught me the difference yourself, in your own kitchen, laughing about it." "Mom, please. There's a shelter on Route 9 that takes walk-ins after 9, I said. "I called ahead an hour ago, in case you came. Your bag's already dry." I put a blanket in it. I handed him the duffel, which he hadn't noticed I'd taken and returned. Then I closed the door, gently, the way you close a door on a room you don't need to check again. Robert was standing at the bottom of the stairs when I turned around, 2 mugs of tea already made, steam rising in the quiet house. "You okay?" he asked. "I built something once out of nothing," I said, taking the mug from his hands. "I'm not going to spend what's left of my life watching someone burn it down out of laziness and calling it love." He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. We drank our tea by the fire, and for the first time in a year, the house was completely, peacefully